Hi, I'm Lauren Kemp,
And I'm Bridget Price.
and this is Entrepreneurs in Progress. So, today we're going to talk about pricing. As entrepreneurs, one of the most challenging tasks is figuring out how to price your goods and services. So, in this episode, we're drilling into our pricing strategies and all of the internal and external factors that affect pricing. Let's get started. Why is pricing so difficult?
I think in the beginning, you're just trying to, one, make it look like you know what you're doing. And pricing reflects whether or not you are even on the same wavelength as other businesses or entrepreneurs. And so with that being said, I think pricing is one of the main things that determines if you're going to make any money. If you price too low, you're going to lose money. If you price too high, you may not be able to generate sales. You may not be able to acquire business within your market, whatever you're doing. And so it's really trying to establish yourself and make sure you're hitting the mark. So it's super important when you're starting out. And that makes it really challenging because if you don't, you almost have to start all the way over or scratch it. And it can set you back if your pricing isn't done the right way.
Absolutely. I think it's so tough because oftentimes you end up undervaluing yourself. So when you're starting out, I feel like the kind of rookie thing entrepreneurs do is they try to set a lower price than maybe what their actual value is, because either they're scared about making sales or they might just have that insecurity. And it's stressful because sometimes it's hard, especially if it's like services.
Yeah.
There can be such a wide range, especially with like consulting. So I think that we tend to undervalue ourselves as entrepreneurs in the beginning sometimes. I mean, there are some
Right.
people who, are just overflowing with confidence and think that their shit don't stink. They're gonna price, themselves as a premium luxury, and maybe they shouldn't be, but more often than not,
Right.
I think that, it's that fear of getting enough sales that usually sets your prices, so low. And I think one of the hardest things in the beginning too, when you're just starting out and you're not, that immediate success and you're trying to figure things out, it's hard to figure out what's not working. Is it the product or is it the pricing? And often people will think it's the pricing.
Absolutely. And naturally, I think when you're starting out, you do undervalue yourself because you're not even sure if you can deliver just yet, right? You aim to deliver, right? You have all of these systems, or ideally, you have all of these systems and processes in place so you can execute and deliver, but there's still that unknown, right? Until you get that first sale, until you ship that first product out, until you perform that service, you're on pins and needles, right? You're trying to figure out if you're able to actually make it as an entrepreneur. And so you will price yourself or undervalue yourself in the beginning because you're just trying to gain barrier to entry. You're trying or get past that barrier to entry. And a lot of times you're right. You don't know if it's your product offering, your service offering, or if it's pricing that is stopping you from getting that first sale. And I think there's ways to work around that, right? It's hard in the beginning and you don't really even know if it's your product or service or pricing until after you've had a sale. What I found is that if we prepare and do all of these things to get to launch, and like we've mentioned before, we expect $1 million in our account the next day. And then when it doesn't happen, you're like, what the fuck is wrong? What's going on? But I think there's I guess you could call it a grace period, right? There's this period of time where you kind of have to wait and be patient and allow that first transaction to take place. Then you can evaluate whether or not if you need to change anything or how you deliver that first time around. And that can be really tough to just, trust the process essentially.
Yeah, because you eventually will get feedback from people and you can, ask them, what do you think about the pricing or the product and all of that. And, you have all your plans and you launch and then it's just like life where it just like takes you in a completely different direction, and it's you usually are not following the exact same plan. You're pivoting, you're trying different things, and it usually never goes according to plan. Otherwise you'd have that like $1,000,000 in the bank the next day.
I know. You'll be just swimming in the money, and all your work is paid off that you've done over the past few months, getting everything back to where it needs to be. But I think that there is a process to pricing, right? And that even includes just, again, sitting back and waiting for that transaction to happen. A lot of times entrepreneurs have to give their services or products away for free, right? Because that's also part of the trial and error. What is the feedback looking like? What's the loop? What do I need to tighten up? And then that can actually help establish your pricing and figure out if you're kind of, in the right arena and if you need to change anything.
And like you mentioned before, like sometimes people are setting a low price just to get into the market. So it's not even necessarily a bad pricing strategy. It's just a different one to, try and get your product out there and get people to try it, like you said, and then eventually, raise prices once you have a bigger market share.
Absolutely.
And I'm looking forward to talking about, both of our thought processes into going into pricing. But first I want to talk about all the different, pricing strategies, because I was, looking it up in anticipation for this discussion. And I was just kind of amazed at how many different pricing strategies there are, but also how we you intuitively know it, or maybe because we were, we took business classes in college, maybe that's why we know it. But like, it's not like Brian and I sat down and we're like, okay, we're going to do like economy priced, strategy, geographical price strategy. That's not how
You're not doing the textbook version, right?
Yeah, that's not how it went down at all. But there are so many different pricing strategies out there.
Absolutely. You're right. We do instinctively and intuitively know when we're thinking about our idea and our product or service, we already know what we're thinking about in terms of how we're going to price it. We don't have the textbook name for it all the time. And we're not defining it like that. But we know if it's going to be value-based, right? We know if it's going to be a premium brand. We know if it's going to be competitive within the landscape. We know all of those things, and then we kind of gravitate towards those examples, see what's going on, and then try to mimic that or use that to develop our pricing strategy. So there are tons of different pricing strategies, like you said, but we just, aren't always thinking about it in that linear way, I guess.
Absolutely. What strategies did you find yourself using within your businesses? And like, what was your thought process when deciding on how to price for, Made Easy or College Genie?
Yeah, so Marcus did the initial pricing for Made Easy, and his strategy was to look at what the competitors are doing, find kind of a baseline in terms of our default pricing and what we want to be priced at. We wanted it to be like mid-tier. However, we needed to, have social proof. So with that, we did offer like steep discounts in the beginning. We did offer free cleanings to friends and family. We wanted to get that feedback about our services first before comfortably resting at this default mid-level pricing. So we looked at what our competitors were priced at, what the reviews looked like, how many customers they were averaging a month, and we kind of decided where we wanted to fit within that landscape. If I had to go by the textbook definition of some of these strategies, we feel like we're in between competitive pricing and value-based pricing. Actually, for a number of years, we were kind of value-based because even though we were competitive in terms of actual quality, right, we were providing really great quality service, we were still priced in a way that was very attractive to people looking for cleaning services. And so recently, we changed our prices, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but we weren't like this premium sexy cleaning company, right? We weren't, the mom and pop cleaning business operation either. So, we felt like we rested somewhere in the middle, and that's the strategy that we kind of pulled from to develop our pricing. College Genie, I did a lot of research into consulting prices and how consultants typically price their work and their services, and they usually have like a kind of premium high-end hourly rate, depending on the industry, you could structure it in packages, right? So I initially went through like the packages route, but I completely underestimated how much time it would take me to do certain things. And that's because, when you're coaching students or kids or anybody, right? Sometimes you develop a rapport, a relationship with that person, and then little tiny asks happen or they get piled on, and before you know it, what was supposed to be like a 2-hour session is now 4 hours or 6. In some cases, it just kept bubbling over. So even though I felt like my package pricing was I wouldn't say extremely premium, it was kind of in the middle, lower middle, I guess, I instantly became like this kind of entity where I was making almost like minimum wage when you really distill all the numbers and stuff like that. And that was really tough because obviously I love the work, I love what I was doing, but it was not even sustainable at all. And it's sometimes if you're still trying to have social proof, if you're still trying to build your credibility, it's hard to tell people no. It's hard to turn people away who've technically have already paid you or continue to pay you. So that was a really tough learning lesson for me, because a lot of times I think consultants don't realize that they too can have systems and processes in place that will avoid your time being kidnapped or hijacked.
Scope creep is definitely one of those issues that consultants come up against a lot. Is they take an inch, another inch, then it becomes a mile.
Absolutely, because you're trying to maintain a really great relationship, right? A lot of my business in the college consulting space was word of mouth, right? I didn't do any external marketing or anything like that, which I was grateful for, but you're trying to nurture these relationships, and sometimes it does take time, and that scope creep really did happen. And if you're not careful, it could just leave you feeling burnt out and, having to take a step back because you've been going for so hard for so long, and the monetary benefit isn't always there.
Yeah. So would you say that you were trying to do competitive based pricing, or?
Yeah, I would say I felt like the product in itself was a premium service, right? So if anyone's able to afford, to have someone help their kids navigate the college process, that's premium, right? Most kids have to figure it out on their own, that type of thing. So it was premium pricing, but also trying to maintain some type of competitive nature. There's not a lot of consultants in the industry in terms of college, but there's enough to where someone could really monopolize that market if they really wanted to.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a little interesting. Yeah. But it was definitely a hard learning lesson for me, and I know moving forward how I'd want to operate. You kind of have to take those hits and those bruises and understand exactly where you went wrong and then how to fix it or how to improve on it. Now, because of that experience, I had no qualms telling people how much our cleaning services were. Like, this is what you're paying. We're not budging, so it's crazy how those failures build up your confidence. Make sure you don't take those same setbacks before. It's like this callus that you build almost. So
yeah, absolutely.
How did you go about your pricing with Cozy Cactus?
So with Cozy Cactus, it was definitely competitive based pricing. So I, looked around the industry and kind of figured out where my brand, fit within that. So we weren't like premium, Lord Jones. I'd like to imagine we're, the target level of premium. Like, like.
Wait a second. Target's still premium now.
Well, yeah, but it's not, it's not like Prada.
It's not, or, yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
Like, we're Target. Like,
yeah.
I like that level of premium.
Yeah.
I call it like accessible premium.
I was going to say, it's a relatable premium, right?
Yeah. So that's kind of what I was going for, because my target market at the time was people like me. And I was like, okay, where's my level?
Right.
What I'd be willing to pay for, this product. So it was definitely, I guess a little bit of premium pricing, a little bit of competitive competitive pricing, definitely some promotional pricing. I've done promos where, you have the buy one, get one free, or, 20% off, or discounts like that. I also had to make sure that I priced it high enough for wholesale. So I think I've talked about this on a previous episode where I did not realize wholesale is like half of your retail price, and that's just what is expected, at least in the skincare industry. So when we had a wholesale, order, I was just like, holy shit, there goes all our margin. Like, we're losing on this. So had to adjust that a bit to where at least we were, breaking even, if, not losing money on wholesale. So that was kind of the thoughts around, pricing for Cozy Cactus, which I felt was a lot easier than coming up with pricing for Rotiv. I think that's pretty true of anything. Like, I feel like product-based businesses are a little easier to price because you have other products that you can compare them to most of the time. But when consulting, it's such a range with consultants services. So with Rotiv, Brian, set the pricing at the beginning. And, first he calculated it based, you kind of like calculate based off like what your hourly is going to be. But then we also turned it into having project-based pricing. So it wasn't just hourly. And we did the packages like you did for College Genie. But we started out very, very low, at least for, Salesforce partner industry, because we were just trying to get clients. And so, I think we were just like at the very low end initially, trying to get clients and build up leads, because we didn't have a good lead machine in the beginning either. So just getting a foot in the door and then, providing really good service to get repeat business was the main strategy in the beginning. And then we also, Brian, so here's a little bit of like, psychological pricing, where we had 3 different packages, low, medium, high end. And then, the default, of course, like people are always like going for that, medium sounds good. So there's a little bit of that. And Brian likes having different price options. So,
that psychological
options.
Exactly. That psychological component is more or less like, I want to choose. I don't want you to tell me what I'm going to pay. I'm going to choose what I pay.
Yeah.
And they typically do gravitate towards that middle or medium level, because they feel like they're getting the best of both worlds, getting something high, and then they're getting something low, and it's a high-low mixed.
Yeah, exactly. And I think once we started having a more reliable lead generation and pipeline, that's when our prices, we started looking at competitive pricing. So what are other people charging in our industry, which is kind of hard to find. Again, with consultants, you have all the forms that you got to fill out to get their pricing.
To kind of,
That's kind of how we've gone about it. And now we're at the point where it's like competitive pricing, but also value-based pricing, because I really strongly believe in value-based pricing. So Brian and I are butt heads occasionally about it, because I'm like, no, like this is a high value thing for people. If we're building out something that's going to automate within Salesforce and like streamline your processes and make you more efficient, that should not be the same as doing like little admin work or making a custom field or, doing a bunch of things. Like that is way more valuable. Like we need to charge value-based, not hourly based in that way. And then Brian's like, well, Lauren, I got to sell. So like you can't have it be so high that if people don't see the value or have the budget, can't have it be so high that we don't get the sale. So it's just kind of funny. We go back and forth trying to figure out, when do you go value, when do you go competitor, and how do you make sure that you can still sell your services at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because at first, when we were kind of getting going with Made Easy, I was all for like the promotional discounts, right? In terms of like just getting people in and making sure that they could at least give us some type of, or add to our reputation. Over time, Marcus was like, yeah, no, we're cutting this discount off. We're only going to offer discounts if they ask about a discount or some type of sale or some special or something like that. We're not going to just come out with it, because that's what we were leading with. Like, oh, if you book today, you know, get this off, or if you book in the middle of the week, you get $15 off, whatever the case may be. He's like, no, we're only going to offer these discounts if people bring them up. Like basically what we do when we go to Retail Me Not and try to find coupons for a store. When you get to the cashier, they're not going to tell you that there's a Saturday, you know, what's Saturday morning sale or 6 a.m. whatever sale. They're not going to tell you that. They're going to want you to bring it up to them. So that's kind of where Marcus fell. You know, for a while, I remember telling Marcus we needed to increase our prices for Made Easy. And for some reason, he didn't feel like it was necessary. He felt like our prices are pretty, you know, high considering the market. I'm like, I don't think so. I think we've fallen below. And then he did take a look. He's like, yeah, you're right. We need to increase our prices. But there's so much that even goes into changing your price that sometimes it can deter a lot of companies from making that jump, especially when you start hitting your stride and you start seeing your business grow and scale, and you're like, we're comfortable right now. We don't know if we need to rock the boat and increase our pricing.
Yeah.
With Rhoda, have you guys found that you're there yet? I mean, you both have kind of different philosophies in terms of offerings around pricing, but have you found yourself in, you know, needing to increase your price just yet, or is it still a little early for you guys right now?
Yeah, so we've actually raised our prices a couple of times. Most recently this March. Well, I mean, we started so low, Bridget. Like, we were so low. People were getting a fucking steal with our services.
Oh, no.
Like, our first few clients got a really banging deal.
They were lucky.
Yeah. So, like, the first time was, like, when we finally had that, you know, solid lead gen, then we're like, all right, let's, like, you know, let's bump it up to, like, what normal people should be paying for, like, the services we provide.
I see.
And then finally this March, I think, we bumped it up again. And so that was a long process because, again, you know, Brian is, you know, worried about, he's like, I got to be able to sell our services. And it's, you know, it's so scary, like you said, when you hit your stride and you don't feel 100% confident because, you know, it's so up and down. You don't want to, like, kill your growth, you know, too early. And so over the, you know, over many months, like, we're picking up on different signs. So, like, one of the signs was we weren't getting any pushback on our pricing, like, at all. No pushback at all. Yes. We're like, okay. And then we looked around with competitors, and it's hard to find pricing out there, but based on our, you know, analysis, we were on, like, the lower end of pricing. And then there were a couple of times, so like we'd hear about other deals. We're working with the salespeople at Salesforce, and they bring in different partners, and they bring us in because somebody else was too expensive. Like, I found out one time that we were like half the price.
Oh my gosh.
Another partner. I think that happened to us a couple of times. And I'm like, Brian, we're half the price? Like, no, let's bump it up. And then, like, I feel like the final straw for me was, Brian told me someone asked if we were the B team. And I was like, oh, hell no. We are not the B team because of our prices were so low. I was like,
hell no.
No. And so,
oh my gosh.
After a while, I kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And, like, we raised our prices, like, just a little bit. Not crazy. Like, we are still solidly in the middle. Like, we're not even above middle. Like, we might still be at middle or slightly below middle on where we are. And eventually we do, like, we think we provide good service. We, you know, we're still, you know, figuring out our processes and stuff. So I think once we tighten it up a little bit more, we definitely want to be, you know, more on the premium side. But where we are in our business right now, I'm at least happy that Brian finally was like, okay, we can raise our prices a bit.
Not the B team, girl. Like, that would have been.
Yeah. I was so, like, Brian and I were like, what the fuck? We are not the B team. We work our asses off. And, like, oh my God. So, yeah, after that.
Hell no. And isn't it crazy that despite the services that you and Brian offer and the quality that you guys offer, because of pricing, someone thought you were the B team?
Yeah. Insane.
Like, that's insane. And I mean, that is pricing does actually also influence perceptions, right?
Yeah.
Immediately when people get a sense of your price or customers or clients, they're now, whether or not we realize it, they're comparing us across the board to other companies. And
Yeah.
when we fielded calls in the beginning, or when our admin staff are fielding calls, we have a refused service list, and they list the reasons why customers refuse. They try to get information initially, like phone number, if they're willing to provide email address, that type of thing. But they keep running lists on why customers refuse, and obviously what we see a lot of times is price, or they're shopping around and stuff like that. And sometimes you're immediately thinking like, well, if you're not fucking with our price, okay, cool, we don't want you anyway.
Yeah.
But still, we're not even really thinking about how our pricing is influencing others' perceptions of our company and our business. And if that's actually matching our brand, right?
Yeah.
So if you go to our website, Made Easy, I would say our website is really clean. It looks good. It's modern, but our logo includes a little cute little broom icon,
Yeah.
very, what I call, what did you say earlier? Accessible premium.
Accessible premium.
That's kind of where we fall. It's relatable, right? It's like, oh, you get a nice little homey feel, and you get a nice little trustworthy feel with our brand and our logo. But we're not the sexy cleaning company, right? We're not the
Yeah.
team that, I mean, our colors are like this kind of brighter royal blue type of color. They're not this like sexy chromatic black and white.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, that's not where we fall. So it's funny because, sometimes you have to think about that in terms of your company development or your growth. Like, are we going to elevate that eventually? Would we go towards like more of a muted blue if we're trying to continue to be more competitive? Are we going to maybe choose another color palette or option? Or how are we going to think about this? How is our brand going to match our pricing? And it's crazy because instantly when we were priced kind of on the lower end, people were thinking, oh my gosh, just like you and Brian, we're getting a steal, right? Like, these people have their shit together. They have their website. I can book online. The team showed up. They have great reviews, yada, yada, yada. And so they're thinking they're getting so much value, right, out of what they're paying. And then before you know it, that was another thing for us, is like, there's times where technically, even depending on the customer service or experience, what they paid for didn't match what they ended up getting. And I'll tell you one thing, even with pricing, you have to consider all of the moving parts and pieces. It's not just actually promoting the service or having the right service, making sure it's executed and delivered properly, or the product or whatever. It's the entire experience. A lot of times our customer and client's experience saved our asses when the quality wasn't there in terms of cleaning. In fact, sometimes we didn't even get reviews or feedback, negative feedback per se, because our client experience is that tight. And I think those are things that companies or new entrepreneurs should consider when thinking about their pricing strategy. I think we are always trying to figure out, like, what do we think this product or service is worth? And then how can I make a little bit more money on top of that? But you have to think about everything outside of what you're offering too. I mean, like you said, you and Brian are working your asses off. And you shouldn't be considered a B team just because you're newer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think even like with you and Brian, you could easily call yourself like a boutique type of service offering, right? You have that intimate experience, you have that world class premium service offering, and that should be reflected in your pricing too. Yeah. Yeah, I've heard Brian sales pitch before, so yeah, I like what you're selling. I'm gonna roll with you. So yeah, I think a lot of entrepreneurs should definitely consider all of those moving parts when it comes to pricing. Otherwise, you definitely, more times than not, you will always price yourself way too low. And then you're not even in control of your narrative or how others perceive you because you've priced yourself too low. And I think that's a strong consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. So what was your guys' experience with raising prices?
Well, crazy enough, after 3 years in business, we just raised our prices in April. So
Hey.
I think we had a small price increase, like maybe shortly after we launched, like maybe a couple of months. I can't remember. I have to ask Marcus, but we pretty much have been at the same rate for 3 years. And at first, it felt like we were still on par with what our competitors were doing. We are in the middle, some high, some low. But this is a funny story. So for us in the cleaning business, we have a lot of friendly competitors. So we have people who we talk to every day, who's in the cleaning space. We share stories, we go back and forth, we encourage one another, and that type of thing. And Marcus is the kind of more an integral part of this community than I am. He's kind of out there talking with these groups all the time, and he's gotten feedback a number of times from our competitors, like, yeah, man, you need to raise your prices, like you're kind of priced too low. But we are getting consistent business, and each month our numbers were growing substantially, actually. So we felt like we were in a good place. But then obviously we started noticing some quality dipping with some of our service providers. We started noticing some of our cleaning teams being very nitpicky about their like pay. So we're like trying to drill down into that. At first we thought it was, well, maybe they're not scoping the project right when they get there, and they're not informing us that the scope of work needs to change, or they're maybe being nitpicked by the customer. The customer's asking them to do things and they're not reporting it back, and so they feel like they're overworking and not getting paid. So we thought it was that at first. Then during the holiday season, when we had like a crazy busy season, one of the benefits of having kind of this network of friendly competitors is if you have spillover, you can recommend customers to them or call them and say, hey, can you handle one of our customers today? We're at capacity. We can't do it. And they'll do it. And a couple of times, not even a couple of times, a number of times, we're looking at their charges or their invoice to us. We're like, holy shit, like they are charging way more than what we're charging. I'm like, at one point we're charging, essentially, if you have to break it down hourly, we're almost charging the equivalent of like $40 an hour for cleaning. Our competitors are charging 60, 65, 70.
Oh, dang.
We're like,
yeah.
we got to do something, because, for what it's worth, with all due respect, we'd go and we compare our reviews to theirs, and ours is 5 stars across the board. We look at each other's website and stuff like that. And you always felt like we were, performing better in that aspect. And so I'm like, we gotta do something. This ain't right. So finally, because it is a process, right? We finally, Marcus spent a huge amount of time getting all the pricing together, everything right, and we have increased our prices. And it's a little nerve-wracking. So because since we've been in operation for 3 years, it's a multi-pronged process to price increases, right? So first you change your pricing for new customers. So anyone who's new, they're getting this new pricing. They don't even know what the old pricing was, unless maybe they came to our site a couple years ago or something, or a few months ago.
Yeah.
But our current customers have not felt the impact of our price increase yet. And that's something that we're rolling out June 1st. So I'm working on the communication right now around informing our customers of our price increase. And I keep thinking back to moments in time where I've been notified of price increases, how I reacted, or how, for me, it's even as small as walking into Chipotle and saying that the prices have increased by 25 cents. Like, what the heck? Like, what's going on here? So I'm trying to be cognizant of how this could be received, trying to make sure that the communication is clear, being transparent as to why we're increasing our prices, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, with one of our vendors, we work with waste management with some of their cleaning needs, and we had to tell them, like, hey, because of the economic landscape right now and to remain competitive, we've had to increase our prices, and this is to make sure we retain top talent. And they completely understood, right?
Yeah.
And it's really just about drafting that messaging and that communication and making it known why you're increasing your prices without just like throwing it in their face.
Yeah, that's so important, is that transparency, which we've, talked about multiple times now, because I didn't even kind of think about it, how, like, especially people who have recurring services, like that could definitely be a price shock to people who are used to paying a certain amount and do this regularly. It's not something that Brian and I really have had to worry about because ours are, on a project basis. Like we have, recurring business with them. It's usually a customized project. We don't have a ton of recurring customers. So like, I think I got an email from like our landscaping company that comes and cuts our grass in our backyard, and they're increasing their, pricing $10. And I was like, oh, okay, like whatever, that's fine. But it's such a delicate balance. Like if you price yourself too low and then you're trying to catch up, like you can't do, I mean, you could try. I just imagine it'd be very tough to go to a really big price jump immediately because the shock of that to your customers might be too much,
Right. And we've had customers, which we're so grateful for. We've had customers who've been rocking with us for years. And it's kind of like, how are we going to handle this with them? How are we going to treat them and thank them for their patronage and not send this shock to them like, oh, we're increasing our prices by $50, right?
Yeah.
Because that may seem like it's necessary for us, but $50 is a lot to someone who's trying to make sure they can afford these types of services. And, I was listening to a podcast earlier this week around this subject, and it's like sometimes, unfortunately, the truth of the matter is, in some businesses, in some industries, you do outgrow your current client base. And that's tough, especially if you've been working with them for an extended period of time. But if you are evolving your business and growing your business and the market changes or landscape changes, we've seen how hard it is to hire right now. How do we respond to that? And is it something that we can completely control? Because, internally, our staff, our employees, that while they might understand that our customers, our recurring customers are at the grandfathered rates, they don't like it because they see the differences between this new price increase and what they're making. And now they're questioning if it's worth servicing these other clients, despite the fact that, well, they've been with us for a while. Their homes are in good shape because we're cleaning for them regularly, but it's still not good. So it's a fine line in terms of trying to keep both parties happy and speak to both of their pain points.
Yeah. So one of the things that we haven't touched on yet is, have you seen, like, what's the outcome? What has been the outcome of raising your prices? I know it's still a little early because, you said you raised them in April. We raised ours in March, and it's only May right now. So have you seen any changes? Like, are you guys making more money? Have you lost any recurring customers? What has been the outcome of raising your prices?
Yeah, so great question. We haven't, from what we can see early on, we haven't lost any recurring customers. We still have to roll out that pricing to them. But for new customers, when we raised them in April, it was almost like nothing happened. People are still booking, people are still scheduling. There was a couple of people that said prices were too high, but we already had that problem to begin with when we weren't priced where we should have been priced. In the cleaning industry, I think a lot of companies experience this huge surge in March and April because everyone is like almost like the year anniversary of COVID. Everyone's trying to get out of their house, like spring cleaning, all of those things, all those factors. So we noticed that huge jump there. Right now, we feel like we are experiencing a bit of a slowdown. And we're not sure if it's the result of school being out, summer's approaching. And typically in cleaning, summer months are slower anyways because people are on vacation and that type of thing.
Yeah.
But what we have seen, some positive outcomes of this, is we've seen our price per cleaning or booking increase, right? So that's awesome. It's increased by almost like $20. Wow. And that's amazing because that means we're making more money by doing less work.
Yeah.
So now our teams are feeling less burnt out or less, they're feeling the perks and benefits of having a more stable but higher priced service offering. They get to work less, they get to make more, and we get to make more. So we love seeing that number go up because it means that we're headed in the right direction. If we can make more money last month, or if we can make more money this month than we did last month with less bookings, that is amazing. And that's ultimately what we want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. For us, I think it's a little early for us to tell. I think we're it has a longer ripple effect because like immediately in March, like we had our highest monthly revenue ever, which was awesome. But when you
Yes.
factor in like, so with January and February, we had really great months. Then we finally raised our prices. And then March, we had a really great March. We got overloaded with business. So that was around the time where we're having the scaling issues. And we're like, okay, we need to pull back the reins. And so in April, like, you know, our revenue was, you know, down in half from March, you know, just those highs and lows. And now we're back in May and we're, you know, we're doing well again. I'm not quite sure where we'll end up, but we're like within the first week of May, we already passed what we made in April. So I think we're around 35,000 for the month now. And we still got 2 weeks left.
It's 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're not quite sure how pricing has affected that yet because of the different adjustments we've made. I mean, initially, I think that, you know, Brian says you can never tell if you would have gotten more deals or not. But I mean, like, I don't think we've lost any deals to our pricing. We haven't, you know, I was like, are you getting pushback? And he's like, no, not any more than we, you know, were originally. Like, I think that overall, this is going to be good. Like, I think I will have a better idea in the coming months if raising our prices helped, which so far it seems it has.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, Lauren. I think that it's always nerve-wracking to do that price increase and to see exactly if it's going to harm the growth of your business or aid. And I think that it's just one of those pivots, those kind of stopgaps that you have to do in order to sustain yourself, to scale yourself, and to make sure that you are attracting the right customer or client base. We found that unfortunately in the cleaning business, the less that people are willing to pay, the more work that you're having to do, right? So they have these kind of grand expectations of like decluttering, organizing, I mean, scrubbing deep cleaning everything that hasn't been cleaned in years for like $50. And we're like, yeah, unfortunately, we're not a fit for you. And that's fine, right?
Yeah.
There's the beauty of being in a free market is literally there is something for everybody, right? There is someone who's willing to do that. We're just not that company for you.
That's so interesting that you bring that up because we have found as well that the people who like try to haggle or negotiate the most and who seem to be like the cheapest but still really want our services are the ones that end up being the most high maintenance, like the red flag clients that, you know, we're like, like, that's just one of those signs. I wonder why
that is. Yeah, that is an early sign that if someone's haggling on the price that because another consideration that consumers and clients don't consider is how hard we are working on this pricing, right? How much thought we've put into this to make it work for us, to make it mutually beneficial. And when a customer or client comes in and tries to haggle the price, they're already showing a lack of respect around your business, your model, your service offerings, everything. And we have to start thinking about it that way. Sometimes there's a lack of understanding, which we get, right? And that's where we educate the customer, consumer on what they're getting. Well, you can book in 60 seconds. You'll have an online portal that you can have access to. You'll get notifications or reminders of your cleaning. We have this quality assurance process. Sometimes you have to educate the customer on why you're charging your services at the rate that you are. And if after that they still are trying to haggle, it's like, I mean, this isn't going to work because I'm telling you why we're charging what we're charging, and you're trying to come down significantly on something that we've worked really hard to implement.
Yeah, I think sometimes too, it's like they're trying to get the best deal possible to like go back to their leadership and be like, hey, I got us, a 10 or 15% discount to like, show that they're good at, negotiating, or they're saving the company money and doing stuff like that. But in that process, you're already starting off the relationship with your vendor on kind of not a great foot. I mean, unless it's expected, if it's like a standard in, I guess, whatever industry or,
Right.
I don't know, but like that's not the way that I would like to do business. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, here's the value for your services. Like it just feels bad to try to like get people to discount like immediately. And that's something that I wanted to ask you earlier, because you talked about, offering discounts, and there's, negotiating, like, with Brian, he more often than not does not like to discount for people, especially the people who immediately ask for it up front. Like that's one of the, the red flags for a high maintenance client. So I'm not saying we never give discounts, but we try not to, like, because we feel like we already price ourselves pretty low for the value of services that we offer. And it's like you said, if it's not a fit, that is okay. We are okay with turning down business that isn't a fit.
Absolutely. It's less sweat off our back. Like, okay, we're like, listen, just actually, I think it's less sweat off our brow.
Oh,
I think
I don't know.
Marcus corrected me one day. I was like, I guess that kind of makes sense. Less sweat off our brow to not have to engage in that relationship, because that also requires a lot more. We found with those customers too, it requires a lot more upkeep on the front end. They're constantly calling our admin staff. They're constantly pulling away their time to answer mundane questions, or figure out how they can get more away with less. I hate to say it, but in the cleaning industry, you also have targets too, like in terms of, when you talk to a customer, you get a feeling, right? Okay, this is probably not going to end up well. It's frustrating because no matter what you say or do, sometimes those customers, it falls on deaf ears.
Yeah.
And they will convince you, or try to convince you, that what you're doing to them is unfair, or how your pricing is unfair. And we try to steer clear away from them. Sometimes just also technically firing our customers. Like, hey, I'm going to recommend you to someone else. This isn't going to work out. But we have a list of vendors that will fit within your pricing, that can help you. We're not the ones who can do that for you. And those are hard conversations sometimes, but definitely necessary. I've gotten a lot more comfortable with having those conversations, because again, once you feel your time being robbed, once you feel like, oh my gosh, like I've wasted so much time for this and I've literally made no money, you get comfortable real quick with having those conversations. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where we fall. It's funny, in our industry, we're scaling and growing so fast in the last month or so, that it's almost like we grow really fast and then we kind of level out. Then we grow really fast and then we level out. And so I expect our next surge to happen between like September and October. I think we're going to level out through the summer months, and then it's going to jump up exponentially again, and we're going to have to hold on for dear life.
I think that was another thing that caused us to raise our prices as well, was just that we were doing so well in January and February. We're like, we kind of need to decrease demand a little bit.
Yeah.
Like
absolutely.
When you have too much business and you're not ready to scale that fast. And then of course, like we obviously had all these other, data points that led to us increasing our prices. But it's just like, if we can, make more with less work, like.
I think you guys are in an interesting situation, because you guys recognize that you are already offering this service at this premium level. And so you need your pricing to match that.
Yeah.
In our industry, that was one of the concerns about pricing. So at least the price increases. Now that we're definitely coming back up to this mid-higher tier of pricing, right? We're kind of leaning into that premium pricing.
Accessible premium.
Our service, accessible premium. We're creeping into Crate and Barrel territory. We're creeping into Martian territory.
Yeah, that's premium.
So we're like, okay, we got to make sure our services match that. So now we're actually also evaluating the strength of our cleaning teams. Like, what additional training do we need to offer? What tools do we need to provide? What supplies do we need to have accessible? So we're also stepping up our game in that regard too. And that I think a lot of companies have to consider that too. You can raise your prices, sure, but how's the quality going to improve? Is it going to improve, or are you just matching your pricing to finally, or are you raising your pricing just to match the quality of service you currently have that you've been kind of lowballing yourself with?
Yeah, that's such an interesting concept of, you have your pricing and then matching that to the quality of, product or services you provide, and then also matching your brand, like you mentioned earlier, to reflect the quality and
Yeah.
pricing. You have all these different parts that you're trying to get to align with each other. So yeah, are you guys going to change your branding at all as you move up in price?
Yeah, we've talked about it because we've seen some new competitors come in, and some of them are really, like I said, sexy, and they're really like, ooh, like they have that modern, that really like kind of just elevated type of feel.
Sure.
And I think every brand can always elevate themselves, right? They can always go up a notch. But I told Marcus, I said, I think our brand really is rooted in kind of this family oriented, we're locally owned. Like, I think we have to make sure we communicate that, because that's what our brand is. We're not sexy, and I'm totally fine with not being sexy. You know what I mean? We're not super, I mean, we are high tech, but we're not like Apple, right? We're not like trying to come off that way. So I think it's important that we stay true to who we are. And that even comes down to who Marks and I are, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think it should reflect the people who run the organization too. And in terms of how we've positioned ourselves within the cleaning business and that in this industry, that's not who we are. And I think it's super important that you stay true to who you are and genuine, because people can also see that as well. And so we will look into that, but for now, I think it's more or less making sure we continue to own the space that we're in. I think we're in a unique space where, again, a quality service with a really, really strong reputation. And I think, honestly, if I could say as much, I don't think any other company can match our client service experience. It's just one of the best. So
Nice.
I say that with full confidence.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what I was saying. Like, Brian and I are confident that we are not the B team. We provide exceptional service, and we can feel confident saying that. We just need to get our prices to match that eventually. But that just takes a little more tightening up, a little more experience, more lead gen.
Absolutely. Have you guys experienced, with everything going on, and it's interesting because I feel like you guys are in a great space in terms of software-based industry.
Yeah.
Have you had any external factors come in and kind of control your pricing or how you approach pricing, especially within the last year?
I don't think so. Like, nothing external, I feel, has forced our hand with our pricing. Again, because I think we started so fucking low. So, like, the only way to go for us is up. We haven't had to have like a setback, or like we haven't had a big push to jump higher. It's just been trying to get our shit together, and then, like you said, eventually match the pricing with what we believe the value of our services is. And yeah, just trying to figure out how to, still move more towards value-based pricing, which is hard, and project-based pricing versus hourly. So we're still, toying with things, trying to figure it out. We'd like to have, subscription type customers that we're working with monthly. We're still trying to figure that out. So, we're still only within the beginning of our second year in business. So we're still very new to this. Figuring it out.
Yeah, for sure. I think that we saw last year with the whole ass pandemic that, I mean, we were having these conversations like, okay, so what business we get into next year that is going to be kind of pandemic proof or recession proof?
The safer ones,
And across the board, it was software based businesses that, were somewhat thriving. We've seen a lot of companies report record sales during the pandemic, especially as people are trying to navigate things and streamline their own systems and processes, and having the right software in place can definitely do that. So we're like, yeah, we got to start a software-based business.
Yeah. Well, we got really lucky because we didn't know we obviously knew the travel industry was going to get decimated, but we didn't know what would happen to technology. We were lucky that, like you said, it kind of thrived as people were becoming more remote and relying more on software. But yeah, I think that, obviously technology is a great industry to be in. Like, you have the higher margins. It is also just like fun and exciting with all the new products, and just, I love it. I know some people think that, people view like it as the rose-colored glasses, and that, it's not as great as it all seems. But as someone who's been in the technology industry for a long time, like, it's nice, like, because we're in this industry, we've been able to grow. We've been able to have enough margin to pay employees well and invest in things. And it's a good business. But, you know, it's not everyone's passion. Like,
right. Yeah.
And it's not sexy at all. Like, Rotive, our business is not sexy. Like,
I might disagree with you on that. I mean, I think it's sexier than saying you own a cleaning business, but it's. I think there's maybe levels to the sex appeal around businesses.
Man, we got some unsexy businesses that are doing well.
Yeah, that was the biggest lesson I had. Was like, holy shit, like. These evergreen businesses, man, people be overlooking them, but they are tried and true. They're that stable thing that you need. It's kind of like that 80-20 rule. Like, nah, I'm going to stick with something that people need all the time versus trying to be innovative, social media marketer, inventor / whatever. Mark Zuckerberg, whatever. No, but yeah, I think our generation was so like into this whole overnight success thing. We're trying to come up with this latest and greatest idea, and we're gonna have all these angel investors, and we're gonna just take Silicon Valley by storm. And we've learned so much in being kind of in a basic business and industry that we have the confidence to maybe think about sexy stuff. But now that we know what we know, we don't care about the sexy stuff. We want more of these kind of tried and true businesses under our belts. So,
well, it's also been a good learning experience. Like, maybe eventually we'll get to the sexy stuff, the stuff that really inspires us and that we really want to work on. Like, because we have constantly, new ideas. But for now, it's been such a great learning experience, and we're feeling very fortunate that we get to keep learning because we're still in the game.
Yeah.
And that, it's just fun.
Yeah, I've learned, especially, with how we go about pricing, if you're priced right and we get those numbers right where we have fewer bookings but more money each month, having higher revenue, that allows us to have to take less money in terms of profit, right? The more money you make, your cut doesn't have to be as big as you want it to be in the beginning or need it to be in the beginning. If you're making $3 million a year, you could realistically say, I only need a profit of 10%. That's $300,000. And of course, in the beginning, if you're like, I'm making $300,000 and 10% is $30,000, you're like, I need more than that. So it's definitely been a learning experience. It's funny because in our industry, we've seen how pricing impacts other clients of ours. One of our clients, or groups of people I guess we service, is Airbnb hosts and their cleaning needs. A lot of cleaning companies steer clear of Airbnbs or cleaning vacation rentals because the pricing is not there. A lot of what I've gleaned from Airbnb hosts or vacation rental hosts is their overall pricing has to be attractive enough to lure the guests to staying there. And one of the things that we would get is, well, I priced my home at like $100 a night. I can't have my cleaning rate be more than what I'm charging a night. And I just thought that was such a weird concept. Like, I never would, whenever I've booked for Airbnb or vacation rental, I've never looked at the cleaning and be like, oh my God, that's more than what I'm paying a night. Like,
ooh, I for sure have. I definitely,
You have?
yeah.
Oh my
When I look at
gosh.
the pricing for what I'm paying per night, and then I see this giant cleaning fee, I'm just like, what the fuck? Like,
Oh wow. I've never felt that way. So that's so interesting. And that is the feedback we get from Airbnb hosts or vacation rental hosts, and we're like, I
they need to price
mean,
themselves higher. Like, if they're gonna
exactly. I
provide
said,
a premium cleaning service, then you got to price yourselves higher. You can't be at that
yeah,
lower market.
and again, I know a lot of these, it's so interesting seeing it from the other side, right? Because they don't necessarily know that you're still a kind of a newer entrepreneur, a newer business, right? They're coming to you and you're seeing how they're trying to figure everything out on their end. They're like, so many times, this is my first vacation rental home, or this is my first investment. I'm trying to figure out, they're trying to learn along the way.
Yeah.
And I always try to tell them whenever I can, I'm like, you might need to reconsider your pricing. I understand you're trying to get people in, right? But
Yeah.
if they're not willing to pay for the appropriate cleaning on this home,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what you're going to do.
Pick up a mop.
Because I can't.
Pick up a broom.
Girl,
That's
I
what you're
can't-
gonna do.
I cannot tell you how many calls I've filled it with these pain points, because vacation rentals are so particular that's one of the phone calls I still take to this day. So anytime someone's inquiring about vacation rental cleaning pricing, I'm the one who talks to them, because our admins, it's so finicky. Like, we have this whole new process down for vacation rentals that right now I can effectively communicate and make sure I get across to them. Sometimes I think that when people call in and they get your initial gatekeepers, like your admin staff, they try to wear them down. No, that's not going to happen with me. Yeah. So I'm on the phone. I'm telling them we're doing laundry off site, right? We're not laundering on site anymore. You need extra sets of linens. We're doing limited restocking, right? Because we're a cleaning company. We're not a staging company. Let's get all of this clear, right? And so they love that, because they feel like, oh, this is very structured. This makes sense. And we have to tell them we have unrealistic expectations from some people. They'll have like a 6-7 bedroom home, and it's like a party house.
Yeah.
So they'll have like 12 beds, right? They have bunk beds, and they have, and maybe it's not always a party home. Maybe it's a family home. I don't know. But they have all of these things. And I'm like, you have 4 bathrooms. I'm like, you do realize that 12 sets of linens and 30 towels are not going to wash and dry in a 4-hour cleaning, right? Like, you understand the logistics around this. And they'll say crazy stuff to me like, oh yeah, but our last cleaning team got it done. No, they did not. Like, they were clearly cutting corners, which is why you're clearly calling me. And I'm going to tell you that you're approaching this all wrong. It's so hard though, because these people who are starting out with these vacation rental spaces and homes, they are so invested. They go and pick out the linens, they pick out the duvet covers, they pick out the pillows, they pick out the throw covers. They are so invested in everything that they've put into this space. And I'm kind of like looking at them like, so you gonna get rid of the shit and do like some Amazon stuff? Like, what are we doing? Because this is lovely, okay, but if you're really trying to make this a business, I hate to break it to you, get rid of the damn charm and character, okay? Like, it's not sustainable.
Unless you're going to charge a premium price.
Unless you're going to charge a premium price, exactly. Yeah. That is that one missing piece that they don't understand. You can find anybody to do everything that you want them to do. You're going to have to pay for it.
Yeah.
So it's so funny to me when they're like, yeah, we can't price our cleaning more than our standard nightly rate. I'm like, you got to increase the rate. And then you've seen it too. A lot of some companies or some hosts, they will bake their cleaning into their rate, so you don't even see a cleaning fee.
Yeah.
I liked that
I would
approach
prefer that.
versus
Yeah.
bake it into the pricing, like add an extra $40 a night into that, whatever it's going to cost to get the cleaning done that matches your home. And then the other thing with that is, I get that everyone's trying to make money. I do, but this is also about pricing. A lot of hosts will try to do those same day turns, because they're trying to maximize the number of people who come in and book. I think that's such a dangerous game. despite you having maybe a great relationship with your cleaning company or whoever's cleaning your home or whatever the case may be, anything can go wrong. The fact that you are banking on everything to go right, right, so you don't have to cancel on this guest is crazy to me. It's not smart because you can't control what happens outside of you. If your cleaning team gets into a car accident, if they've had a death in the family, if they get sick, whatever the case may be, they test positive for COVID. I don't know. You're banking on everything going right in this 4 or 5 hour window, and that's just charge more so you can have those days in between. So in case anything happens, you know, you're not left holding the bag or holding a mop or a broom or a bucket. So that's been an interesting kind of process to see other people try to figure out their pricing. Also, how their approach to pricing has influenced our pricing because of what we've dealt with vacation rental cleanings in the past. Man, those are being charged at a premium now. I have no qualms about it. You are paying this price. We know what it costs. We know what it takes. You are not going to convince us to do laundry on site. Okay? This is what it costs.
And I think you build up that confidence as an entrepreneur, and you build up that confidence around your pricing, because like we've said, we have, failed many times before, and it has been through experience and learning, and with our current businesses reaching that, next level of success, that we're able to stand up and stand behind our pricing. And it's that's why it's just such a hard thing for people to, figure out, but you'll get there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you're right. It took years for me to build this confidence. Okay. It took so long for me to basically fall flat on my face and say, you know what, I'm not going to take this anymore. I'm going to do what's best for not just my sanity as a business owner, but for the business sake as well, and for my employees, and even for the customer. This is the best thing for you too, because you're going to get the best value if you pay this. So, but yeah, it does take some years to build that confidence up. And once you do, I think you'll reap the benefits of those decisions. And here's the thing with pricing, guys, like if you go too high, you can always come down a little lower, right? You can always continue to play with it. It is a moving scale, and people understand. And just as much as you outprice customers or clients, sometimes they come back to you. Sometimes they have more discretionary income, You just want to be very transparent, I think, in your pricing. And we talked about that last episode. And be clear and effectively communicate the value of your service or your product offering.
Yeah. And that's such a good point. Sometimes people leave and then come back because they realize that the value of your services are worth it, and they've gone somewhere else and they regret it.
We've had that. Yep. We've had that happen a number of times. So, and it's a huge compliment, right? Because at the end of the day, I think this is that whole, it's never personal, it's business. Like if they leave and come back, great. I'm happy that you're back. Let's, have a really great relationship, except for the ones with the red flags. You got to let them go. They got to go into the abyss. Okay. They got to,
that's when you recommend them to somebody else.
The better, with more patience, temperament, not me.
But this was such a fun conversation. It's so interesting seeing how people, go about pricing. We're still learning and, making our way up from where we are. Yeah. So,
girl, make sure no one ever calls you guys the B team again.
Oh, hell no. Oh my God. I was just no. Yeah. I already know you was pissed. You were like, no.
Yeah. Yes. You guys are definitely not B team. So
I have never made a B team in my life. So fuck that shit.
Exactly. I already know like that competitive nature, and Lauren, like, hold up. Do they know my background? Do they know where I come from?
Yeah.
Do they know the greatness that I have? Like, they're tripping. Like,
you're the best hype woman.
I am definitely a great hype woman. Yes, but it's all true. So that makes it a lot easier to be a hype woman. When it's true, it's very easy. So, yes. Yeah. They will know after this podcast you guys are not the B team, okay?
Yep. Oh my goodness.
Well, guys, thanks for chiming in.
Thank you for listening.
As we rant.
Connect with us on LinkedIn. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all the things. Like, share,
All the
subscribe.
things. Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks, Bridget.